guys. Hey, you guys. Welcome to Burgundy Blue Commentary. We talk about what we want to talk about when we're ready to talk about it. And today we have to talk about the new Pope. And I have Gardis Watts here, and I'll give him the floor because he has probably background that you didn't know about and a lot of knowledge because I have a list of questions for you, Gardis. And thank you for being here.
Oh, no problem. Thank you for having me.
I had a list of questions because one thing I wanted to know, like, how do you become do you have to be a cardinal to be a pope and things of that nature? So I don't know if I'm more excited to know that. And how did he decide what his name was going to be, or was it decided for him? So I'll let you take the floor because I think some of my questions might be a little superficial, but
hmm
I really wanted to know some of those things. So I'll let you go right ahead.
Okay. As far as your first question, what's interesting is in the canon law for the Catholic Church, the only qualifications to be pope is to be a practicing Catholic and male. Doesn't say anything about you got to be a priest or a bishop or even a cardinal. Now, the thing is, uh, obviously, you have to also be elected by the College of Cardinals, and basically, that's a group of cardinals that's within the Catholic Church. Cardinals are basically what they call archbishops. They are basically people who oversee dioceses like uh, the Chicago Archdiocese, which spans not just Chicago but the Chicagoland area. And Cardinal Blaise Cupich is the Archbishop of the diocese. But then there are cardinals who are like in several kind of like places that not necessarily in charge of dioceses, but they have roles in like the Vatican. But the cardinal is an important position because it's a bunch of bishops that are handpicked by the current pope. And what they do is they're basically kind of the group that actually runs the doctrine of the Catholic Church.
Mm-hmm.
So, but they also, one of their important jobs, and we've seen it in these last couple of days, is when the seat of Peter or the Pope's seat is vacant, then they have to vote on the Pope, and in the vote there needs to be a 2/3 of the vote approving whatever cardinal is eligible. Now the thing is, in the College of Cardinals right now, they're like roughly like about 220 cardinals, but typically only like about 130, I think, are eligible to vote in the conclave, which is the voting of the Pope. Only the cardinals who are eligible to be Pope within this. And I know I said that the only requirements is to be Catholic and to be male. However, within the College of Cardinals, they restrict those over 80 years old, and also too any cardinals who have like a scandal against them. Because there was a cardinal, and I forgot his name, where Pope Francis had to sit him on the sidelines. So he was kind of kicked out as an elector, but he was still, still listed as a cardinal. So these electors of the College of Cardinals are are the eligible ones to, to vote for the Pope. And like I said, you need 2/3 of vote. So they typically go by rounds. So I think they started yesterday, and I think they only had one round of votes yesterday, or maybe two, I think. And nobody picked up the 2/3 majority. So, but day two was interesting because typically These last couple of cardinals, took about 3 or 4 days. So being day 2 was, kind of interesting. Now, the surprise of it is it being an American pope, which is the first time in history that the Catholic Church has had an American pope. Now, mind you, America has only been around for 250 years. The Catholic Church has been around for over 1,000 years. So it's like America compared to the Catholic Church has a very short history. But still, in 250 years and several cardinals and bishops coming from, this area, we've yet to see an American pope. And this is kind of like the first time. And what even makes it more intriguing is this pope is a Chicagoland area pope, particularly Dolton, which is even more ironic. He actually lived on the west side of Dolton. I know you and I, Berg, had these conversations about how that particular side of Dolton gets no love from the current administration, from the previous and the current administration. But I mean, Prevost has, he lived in Dolton when, Dolton was, a lot, much more white than anything. But what's also interesting, and not to say that he's of the Augustinian order. As you know, the Catholic Church has several religious orders. You got the Franciscans, you have the Society of Divine Words, you have the Friars, the Franciscans, several of them. So Augustinians are actually one of the religious orders that he belongs to, and that's where he got ordained as a priest. Apparently, I know he's from here. He went to St. Mary's Catholic Church. That is actually an old church that is now not there anymore, and it's actually in Dolton. Remind me, what road is that again, Berg?
Now it says Layden Avenue in Dolton, but really what do we call it? 138th, I think we call it. But yeah, this is the church here. I'm pulling it up. 13764, and it's a beautiful church. We were talking, it's ironic, weren't we talking about this earlier this year or last year, about how many of the churches are so beautiful, but they're closed down and some have been converted. And I wonder if this church would open back up in the honor of the Pope.
I don't know, because the thing is that, the Archdiocese actually still owns that building. So I don't know if they would want to pour any money into reopening it. They just did this consolidation of churches across Chicago, because they want to quote unquote save money. And so I doubt if they reopen churches. They're more in the business of closing churches than anything. But apparently Pope Leo grew up in this church. Apparently he lived on 141st Street. I took a drive over there to his old building, to the house that he actually lived in, and there were media people there and people passing by taking pictures in front of the house. I don't know if it's occupied or not. It doesn't look abandoned, but it's not like in like a dilapidatory shape or anything like that. So I don't know if anybody's living in that house or not.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
And what a blessing it would be if someone did and they were having a hard time. just in that area is kind of, it's not the same probably for sure as when the Pope lived there, because that's the Riverdale Dolton border, and it's not the best. It's some historical homes over there, but that would be kind of cool if you just woke up one day and the media was there because the Pope used to live there. You having maybe a not so good time. So yeah, so you went by there, you saw media. I'm glad to hear media was here for something else. So
yeah, exactly. It was here for something else.
and this is very exciting. So they were in front of the building, and what was it like? Like, what was the experience?
Well, they, like I was talking to somebody from the Sun Times, and I also mentioned to them that um, the Pope, who is a graduate of Catholic Theological Union, I'm actually a student there, and I'm actually going to be graduating in 2 weeks from Catholic Theological Union. The Pope graduated from there in 1982 with the same degree that I'm coming out with, a master's in divinity. So
congratulations. That's a blessing. Y'all put the graduation caps in the chat. In 2 weeks. That's a beautiful thing. Wow. And okay, so you're there. Do they have any so have you been back to school since he's been appointed? Is that
no,
the right word to say, appointed?
well, I mean, he was just elected, because he's elected by the College of
Elected.
Cardinals.
Okay.
Yeah, but I mean, he, like this just happened today. So, from my understanding, there were a lot of media people at CTU, Catholic Theological Union. Sister Barbara Reed, who is the president of CTU, had a press conference there because she actually personally knows Pope Leo. I guess Pope Leo, or at the time Cardinal Prevost, had invited her to talk to some Augustinians. So she's, she has a personal relationship with the Pope, and I'm assuming he'll probably come visit, hopefully, in the city. But when I was there, they talked to me and, told me, asked me, how I felt about it. It's interesting, considering he's from Chicago or Dolton. He's an American Pope, which, like I said, I think a lot of people who followed this did not think that American Pope would ever be elected Pope, because of the fact that America's name outside of this country is mud.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of anti-American sentiment outside of this country, and a lot of it is justifiable, because we're not the greatest purveyor of morality around the world. So but Pope Leo actually has done missionary work, particularly mainly in Peru, which he was a cardinal out there. Actually, he was appointed cardinal not too long ago by Pope Francis. I forgot the name of the diocese out there, but yeah, he was a cardinal out there, so that made him eligible to become eligible to be in the conclave. Now, here is what's even more fascinating, and I thought this was pretty interesting, because from my understanding, a lot of people was, a lot of Black people, especially Black Catholics, were thinking that, they might want to elect, they might want to consider the African Pope, the African cardinals, like oh, I forgot his name, the cardinal in Ghana, and then there's the cardinal in the Congo, and there's another cardinal in Africa that was on the list in Africa that was, favorites to be Pope. And, there were people who were thinking like, maybe we should have a Black African Pope. Now, there was a historian that basically kind of ran down Provost's lineage, and this historian name is Jara Christopher Honara, and he has records that Provost's grandparents were Creoles from New Orleans. One of his grandparents is actually Haitian. And I thought that was real interesting.
I think so too. Wow.
Yeah. So he actually has some sort of Black lineage in his family. And for me, for him to have Haitian lineage is actually even more intriguing, because
Mm.
like me, I've been to Haiti, and I think, this is, I've been to Haiti before the whole political turmoil happened a couple of years ago with the assassination of the president.
Mm-hmm.
But Haiti's a beautiful island, despite what people tell you. I know everybody talks about Haiti is the poorest country in, the Western Hemisphere. They don't have much. But the thing is that the Haitians are very, very proud of their lineage, and they should be, because the Haitians were one of the first people of African descent to fight back against the system of slavery. They were one of the first groups of people of African descent to actually coordinate a slave rebellion that lasted for 12 years, where they kicked out their French slave masters and actually created their own republic, which is the Republic of Haiti. And, like you see on the screen, they call it the Haitian Revolution. Now, the Haitian Revolution actually sparked a lot of slave revolts here in this country. Matter of fact, there was estimate that in the 19th century, before the end of slavery, there was over 200 slave rebellions. One of the more famous slave rebellions is Nat Turner, which many people say he was actually inspired by the Haitian Revolution to start that rebellion. Also, one other slave rebellion that nearly happened in South Carolina, Denmark Vesey, who said that he was also inspired by the Haitian Revolution. So I thought that was pretty cool that that he has like lineage, coming back from Haiti. So I guess in a sense, we do have a Black Pope. God has a funny way of drawing parallels using using curved and crooked lines.
I'd say, especially getting to the point where all of this happened and we have a new mayor, and I mean just me, not not everyone, but here in Dalton we have a new mayor, and then to top it off, we have some history, which I love.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel, Gardis, about what was it a big deal for it to be an American Pope? Was anyone like you said you were anticipating it, but was it something that people felt was a necessity?
I don't know how much of a necessity it was. I mean, it is a big deal that it's American Pope, since, like I said, there's never been an American Pope before. But as far as a necessity, I'm not sure. The thing about the College of Cardinals now, and this is one of the things Pope Francis has done during his 12 years of being Pope, because he's the one that assigns people to the college, is that you find a lot more diversity in the College of Cardinals. Like, you have cardinals at almost every corner of the world, from Cuba to China to several parts of Africa. You even have what they call the Eastern Orthodox Catholics, Ethiopia, and I think Iran, And these are people who are in the College of Cardinals, not to mention cardinals here on this side of the hemisphere, when you're talking about, not just United States, Canada, Mexico, parts of Central America, South America. Obviously, the current Pope served in Peru. So the College of Cardinals for a long time, was only restricted to majority, European and Italian, some parts of Africa and Asia, that part. But this has been the most diverse part. This has been one of the most diverse College of Cardinals in history, from my understanding. And being that they voted for an American, because I think it's not not because of his nationality, because he, from my understanding, doesn't fit the typical American personality. And what I mean by that is, you see, we Americans have this thing. Like, I've traveled to different parts of the world, and in some parts of the world, America gets a bad name because of the fact that, we think that we are the best people on the planet Earth. We have this notion of exceptionalism, that Americans are the best and we know what's best for the rest of the world. It's a personality of imperialism when you think about it, because obviously America has dominated the world, since the end of World War II. We've been the superpower. This is why America has a crisis right now, because of the fact that in this modern day and age, United States is not the lone superpower anymore. We have two superpowers and maybe a third maybe rising. So I think it's more of just him being from this land, and not the fact that, he has like this thing of American exceptionalism, which a lot of people in the press has credited him for. Hopefully he doesn't act like the ugly American, and that he's just, he's just from here. He's just from America. So we definitely don't need a pope that is going to just say, because I'm American, I know everything, or everything American is good, because that particular personality would not fit for a person who's supposed to serve the church, not the church serve him. Because in the essence of ministry basically is service. You're serving the people. One of the things about Pope Francis that I really admired about him is he didn't accept a lot of the of the pomp and circumstance that popes normally get. He didn't dress all he didn't dress all fancy. He typically just dressed in a plain white kind of robe. He never had like what Pope Leo had when he first became the Pope. He didn't drive in the fancy cars that popes have. He had he had a modest like apartment that he lived in, nothing fancy what the popes normally have. And he didn't take a lot of the a lot of the things that popes normally get. And when he did service, and this is funny because I think actually there might be a video of it. When he was doing a reflection, or he might have been doing his sermon, there was a young girl, I think, who had autism, who just ran up on the stage and got in front of the Pope and started talking to him.
I remember.
Pope started talking back. But it was like a compassion, like, oh, this girl, she just wants somebody to talk to. And while he's over there talking to thousands of people, he stops to talk to this one girl. when there's a ritual that that priests around the world do on what they call Holy Thursday. This is the Thursday before Easter, where they do the washing of the feet. And basically,
Mm-hmm.
what the Pope did was, typically popes would, as a sign of this, they would like wash the feet of the cardinals or the bishops or whoever is there. Pope Francis wanted to do regular people in particular. Uh, there was a moment where he actually went to a prison and washed the feet of the prisoners and actually kissed their feet. Now, this guy's supposed to be the head of the Catholic Church, and he's over there washing feet of prisoners and also kissing it as well. So that is like kind of like the humbleness that he has. Like he ain't big, he ain't too big to just, kiss the feet of a criminal, So he was very, very humble about what he, what he did. And this current Pope was a big fan of Francis. He followed a lot of his doctrines. Obviously, he was appointed by Francis, so
Yeah.
he owed him a lot. And so we're hoping that he kind of keeps up that tradition. But in the end, only a good Pope will be led by the Holy Spirit, and hopefully he will also be led by the Holy Spirit as well.
Wow. Now I have to go back in the day, Gardis, because and you guys that's listening, shout out to Gardis Watts. Thanks for being here to explain this to us, because a lot of us might have went to Catholic schools because it was a better school in the neighborhood, right? But I took communion. I went to Catholic school. I saw what was going on. I saw the nuns and I saw Father. That's it. But I really never got to delve into it. And I found this article that had the 6 or 8 popes that changed history. And what I remember is Pope John Paul. And I'm so sorry. This is going to be very superficial. I think I remember it just because of Michael Jackson video or something like that, or seeing him out there, because during that time it was like AIDS and walk and stuff like that. But this Pope right here will live in my memory just because he's from the area. And who would have thought? Like, who would have thought Chicago first, but Dolton second? Can I run these 7 popes that changed history by you, Gardis?
Yeah,
And you
sure.
give us a little, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And if you guys have, oh wait, you had questions in the chat. Hold on. You had questions in the chat. A lot of congratulations for your upcoming graduation, Gardis. A lot of that. And Scott said this nomination seems like a power grab. Additionally, 7 of the 9 United States Supreme Court justices are Catholic. What do you have to say about that? And feel free not.
I mean, yeah, that is true. However, the thing is, when you look at the realm of politics, and while we're supposed to be trained that politics and religion should be separate, unfortunately, they're much intertwined. But I think those seven Supreme Court justices, they typically don't follow the traditional Catholic social teaching, where it's more oriented to a social justice type of thing, where human life is precious, not just in abortions, but also any human life that's living or unborn. When you talk about the death penalty, most of those Catholic justices believe in the death penalty. So I don't, there's a conflict there. But I don't know. I mean, I don't see it as much of as a power grab, because the Catholic Church has a lot of detractors, especially in this country. as you all know, the Ku Klux Klan, outside of them hating niggers and other non-white people in this country, and also Jewish people, they also hate Catholic folks. And I
I
don't know.
didn't know that.
Yeah, they're also staunch anti-Catholics as well. So, yeah, that's the KKK's list of non-human people. So, but probably too because Catholicism in this country, when this country was first settled by Europeans, it was the Spanish who came in, and the Spanish were actually they were part of the at the time the Holy Roman Catholic Empire, because they were under the influence of of the Catholic Church, because during that time kings and dignitaries were crowned by the popes during that time. But when the English started to come in Jamestown in 1619 and started taking most of the land and actually driving out a lot of the Spanish people towards Florida, and then you have the 13 colonies that settled. Maryland was the only Catholic colony in the New World by the 17th century. So many of the Spanish Catholics were actually either driven to Florida or driven to Mexico, where that was also a Spanish colony during that time as well. So, but the roots of this country is basically Protestant, and probably one of the reasons why the KKK is very staunch anti-Catholics, because when you think about Spain, and you think about the wars that happened in the 16th century between the English and the Spanish, what the Spanish tried to do was they tried to use tried to use the English as slaves against their English opponents. So what they did was, when during a war between Georgia and Florida, in the 16th or 17th century, when Georgia was a English colony and Florida was a Spanish colony, the slaves who ran away from Georgia plantations ran to Florida. And what they did was, the Spanish promised them, if they would join the Spanish army, they would baptize them as Catholics, give them guns, and they would able to turn on their English captors. So they started garnering more people in their particular army, where they actually built a fort in St. Augustine, which is ironic, which is where St. Augustine's fort.
Yeah.
It was called Fort Negro because that there was a black regiment of Spanish troops there, and they were all black regiment there, and they were kind of like the first line of defense against against the English, during this particular war. So I don't know. I'm thinking that maybe the roots of that anti-Catholic sentiment was probably during that time, where they allowed black people to become Catholic and become in the Spanish army and fight against their captors. So
yeah, which is why we know French in Louisiana.
yes, and that's another thing, because when you think about Louisiana, not only there was Spanish there, but it was French. You said, and French also was a predominantly Catholic nation as well. So when the reason why majority of the city there is Catholic is because of that whole French identity. But even when Napoleon ended up selling Louisiana and several other states to the United States, they still maintain that Catholic identity there for some reason or another. It never went away. But yeah, they that's the reason why when you think about New Orleans, a lot of their wards, are called parishes, as parishes.
Yeah.
And this is why it's one of the few cities that is predominantly Black that still has more Catholic churches than Protestant churches.
May I ask a question?
Mm-hmm.
So the Pope has authority. Now, I'm a fan of like Queen Elizabeth and all of that stuff that goes on in England.
Mm-hmm.
And he has an authority over the Roman Catholic Church. And you mentioned, and I'm calling them houses, but like Franciscan, is that covers everything, right?
As far as the church, I guess that's what you're asking.
Does he cover just a Roman Catholic Church, or just
Yes,
a Catholic Church? Period.
yeah, he covers the Roman Catholic Church. We also have to understand that there are several Catholic churches,
Mm-hmm.
and they're split up by what they call rites, RITE, rites. What we see is the Roman Catholic Church has the Latin or the Roman rite.
Mm-hmm.
We also have Catholic churches in Ethiopia. They're considered what they call the Ethiopian Orthodox Church. There's Catholic Church in Egypt. These are churches in the East that aren't necessarily Roman Catholic, but what they call them is that they're in communion with the Roman Catholic Church.
Okay.
So while it's kind of complicated, because it's like while they are part of the Roman Catholic Church, they're not a part of the Roman Catholic Church because they have their own rite. So like, for instance, the Ethiopian Catholic Church has what they call the Alexandrian rite. And it's a rite that was formed in Alexandria, Egypt. And the rite basically, dictates, how the rituals are portrayed, how they celebrate, the Catholic doctrine and stuff like that. So, if you've ever attended, like I've attended an Ethiopian Catholic church ceremony, and it is much longer than a Roman Catholic Church celebration. Like, I think when I went to Ethiopian Catholic Church, it was like about 2.5 hours. And that's long for a Catholic church.
I've watched some online. It's a family called the Mays family, and they went to an Ethiopian church, and it was really long, but I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the service.
Yeah,
But it was really long.
So they go by different rite, but like I said, they're in communion with the Roman Catholic Church. Now, there's other Catholic churches. There's actually an American Catholic Church, which I don't think they are a part of, or they're in communion with the Roman See, or the Roman, the Roman Catholic Church. And then you have what they call the Greek Orthodox, or the Eastern Orthodox Church, which is not in communion with the Catholic Church, but what they call are in dialogue with the Catholic Church. So what ended up happening was, in before 1054, the year 1054, all of the Christian churches in the known world during that time, and that's Europe, Asia, and Africa, were all one. So when you're thinking about a Christian church, it was all one, right? And during that time, you had actually 5 popes. There was one in Rome, There was one in Antioch, one in Constantinople, one in Alexandria, and one in Jerusalem. So you had these 5 popes for this one big church. 1054 is what they call the split. They call it the split, because what ended up happening was the Western churches, which was ran by the Pope in Rome, broke away from the Eastern churches, which had the other 4 popes, because there were 2 things that happened in this particular split. One was political, because of the fact that in the politics of the church during that time, they felt that the Pope in Rome believed that he oversaw the other bishops. Well, the bishops in the East felt like, we're all one equal. We're on all one equal plane. So the Pope in Rome should be equal to the Pope in Antioch and the Pope in Alexandria and the Pope in Jerusalem. So they should all be one. But the Pope in Rome felt, no, I oversee all of you guys. So that was one. The second of the split was called it was the argument of what they called the filioque. Now, in our traditional Roman Catholic ritual, we say something called the Nicene Creed. The Nicene Creed was created in 325 in the Council of Nicaea. No, that is not when Constantine created the Catholic Church. No, that is not, all of the conspiracy theories of the Nicene Council was not created during that time. But in the Nicene Creed, it talks about how the Holy Spirit proceeded from the Father, right? However, what happened was the Roman Catholic Church changed it, where they said that the Holy Spirit proceeded from the Father and the Son. Originally, it was the Holy Spirit proceeding from the Father.
Okay.
So in Trinitarian theology, you have the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. They're all supposed to be equal. Apparently, the bishop in Rome felt that the Son should be on par with the Father, but that's not what it was in the original Nicene Creed. So this is where it's called the filioque and the Son in Latin. So this is what split the church in the East and the church in the West, and this is why you have the Greek Orthodox Church and you have the Catholic Church.
Wow.
Yeah.
Paris Pink said the Lutherans say the creed too.
Oh yeah. So if you go to a Lutheran church, it was so funny because I remember when I went to my first Lutheran church, the person that invited me, because they said they would also recite the Nicene Creed, and they were like, "How did you know the Nicene Creed?" I'm like, because we say this in our Catholic church. And a lot of the rituals in the Lutheran church, because they were the first Protestant denomination to break away from the Catholic Church. So they're closer to Catholic than anything else. And like even today, a lot of their rituals are still kind of like, Catholic-like.
Okay. Well, Gardis, let me tell you, this is not going to be just part 1. I need a part 2 because I have today, when I found out, and thank you for being so knowledgeable, I wrote down maybe 60 questions, and I'm just going to give you a couple, if that's okay. And you could be like, Berg, now come on.
Yeah, go ahead.
The last pope was from Italian descent, or Pope Francis. So now we have Pope Leo. Is that the 14th? Is it the
14th? Yeah,
the 14th. Pope Leo the 14th. Would he have to stay near the Vatican, or can he go live anywhere he wants to in the world since he's American?
Typically, the Pope would have to stay in the Vatican.
Okay, the Pope
Yeah.
would have to stay in the Vatican.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't. So this is why I had to be a part two, because I did not research where. I know he was in Chicago, but does he just pack up and leave? I'm just interested in knowing those things, and he already knew his destiny. I was listening to some testimony where people were saying, even from grade school, they knew he was going in this direction. He had a
Mm-hmm.
calling. So I was just wondering what you thought about that.
Oh yeah, I mean, anybody who goes into ordained ministry, as I call it, or being a pastor or a priest, and I think I broke down the difference between a minister and a pastor, or ordained minister, because all of us are, all of us can be ministers. We minister to people. You minister to people. I've ministered to people. And ministry is just basically a person that serves the spiritual needs of another person. And that could be with anything. So it doesn't necessarily have to be somebody who knows about the Bible and theology and in that sense. So ministering could be anybody. Now, when you're talking about an ordained minister or a pastor, that's something different, because you are now witnessed by a particular church body to be a qualified, what they call a qualified minister. And that requires a particular calling when you think about it, because you typically give your life to service of the church. In particular, like I said, in the priesthood, because in the priesthood, you take a vow of celibacy. So you can't get married, can't have sex, nothing like that. Also, too, in some orders, like the Dominicans and I think the Franciscans, they also take a vow of poverty, where they're not allowed to collect certain amounts of money, and if they do, they have to give it to their order. Which is interesting, because there are Dominicans who teach at prominent colleges, and and these colleges are very prominent, and they pay a high salary, but the salary goes to basically their order, and they don't, they rarely take a dime.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's a big thing when you're talking about an ordained minister or pastor, and even in the Protestant sense, because even in Protestant churches, that's a huge role to take in your life when you're talking about pastoring a church, pastoring people, because if you're married, especially if your spouse is a pastor of a church, you have to share your spouse with the people of that church. Like, obviously, if you had a husband who was a pastor, he might get a call at 3 a.m. saying, "Hey, pastor, I need help with something," and he's gonna have to answer it. So, I
Oh,
mean,
wow. I didn't think about that.
exactly. So that's what I'm saying. Even in the Protestant denominations, that's a very serious thing to do. And my father used to say, it's a calling. God has to call you. You have to hear that calling in order to do that, because it's a big thing. Now, many people have the talents to be a pastor, because they can preach good, they can say stuff good, they can administer good. But if you're not doing it as service, if you're doing it for to clout chase or have a profile, then you're basically doing it for the wrong reasons, and God never called you to do that. And I remember somebody had asked my dad why he never became a pastor, because he's a deacon at his church. But because the guy was like, my dad should have had his own church, because if you hear him back in the days, if you hear him preach, he was amazing. He could have had my dad could have had a nice sized church if he had gone down that road. But the thing he said was, I never was called to do it.
And that's a true calling when you know what you're called for, actually. And you don't try to put more on what God really had destined for you.
Exactly.
Man, that's beautiful. Gardis, I know I was going to ask you about the 7 popes that changed everything, but I think I want to jump over to CNN for the 10 top facts about Pope Leo the 14th. And you guys, it's my fault. I was late. Me and Gardis and I were supposed to be on way earlier. So it's my fault. And I just don't want to have them up so long. So I just want to share some of these things, and then you just jump in. Just jump in whenever you're ready. And we're going to do it on part 2, because I think that a lot of people are talking about the race factor too. I want to talk about that. I know you started a little bit in the beginning, but I wrote some notes about that too. But it says 10 things to know about Robert Prevost, who is now Pope Leo the 14th. Okay, so number 1, he was the least American of the American cardinals. Did you know that?
Yeah. Well, what does it say about what do they mean about the least American?
Yes, so it says Prevost was born in Chicago, but inside the Vatican, where he eventually lived and worked, he was considered the least American of the U.S. cardinals. And you said that earlier. You said he really,
Yeah. So he doesn't carry that identity of American exceptionalism. He's just from here. That's all that is.
Oh, wow. Number 2, he was well regarded by Pope Francis.
Yeah, he was appointed by Pope Francis.
Wow. And now is that I'm not trying to say is that special, but did we discuss that all the cardinals were, or did Pope Francis say, I think he should be the next pope?
No, the Pope has the power to elect people into the College of Cardinals. So the Pope is the only one. So there are people in the College of Cardinals who've been appointed by Pope Benedict, who was the Pope before Pope Francis, and then Pope Francis. And then there's some who are appointed by, like, say, Pope John Paul. However, those popes are like in their 90s.
Yeah,
and they're ineligible to actually be a part of the conclave.
Well, I like this statement. I've never heard a person called this. I've heard people call thoughtful, but they're saying that it was a Vatican correspondent there, and he met Pope Leo the 14th, and he said when he was a cardinal, he said he came across a thoughtful person. I heard that, but a very measured person. I think that's special.
Yeah, it is.
Gardis has told us all of this. He's a member of the Augustine order.
He used to actually lead the Augustine order as well.
Wow.
He was like the head. First, he was like the provincial, which is the local head. Actually, he was the provincial here in Chicago of the Augustine order. Then he became the worldwide leader of the Augustine order.
That's beautiful. He has strong leadership experience.
Yeah, he's the decennary of bishops, where there's a group, just like with the conclave, there's a group that appoints bishops, and he was the dean of that particular or the head of that particular group.
So he says it says number 5, he has a missionary focus. I still consider myself a missionary. My vocation, like that of every Christian, is to be a missionary, to proclaim the gospel wherever one is. Now, I have something to say about Gardis. I've been seeing a lot of different people. A lot of people are separating like Christian and Catholic. Just to hear this statement, is that so? Would he be considered Christian?
Yes, Catholic. Okay. Catholic is Christian, despite what many. I mean, it goes into the lexicon of anti-Catholic sentiment that resides in this country. Like I was just telling you about the KKK, they hate Catholics as well, but they want to separate, Christian with Catholics. But where did the Protestants come from? They came from the Catholic Church. and the first Protestant, Martin Luther, was basically a staunch. Even though he was excommunicated from the church, he still had several Catholic beliefs that many Protestants would say, or misinterpret it as non-biblical, so, or they would misinterpret his way of saying that this is the way of the Christian faith. But I digress. That's another subject.
I'm telling you, we're gonna have to have part 1, 2, and 3 because I have a list of questions. Now, he's also a Peruvian citizen, so we learned that. Number 7, is this his papal? Am I saying it right? Papal name reflects commitment to poor.
Yeah. So he took his name from Leo. He took his name Leo because Leo the 13th, who was a pope in the late 19th, early 20th century, he was what they call the first. I guess they called it the first social justice pope, because he always had concern of the poor and the labor. He always supported the labor unions, which was up and coming during that time. We kind of talked about the Pullman Porters. That was part of the labor union.
Okay.
And it was, during that time, it was very unpopular by the establishment because of the fact that workers during that time were very much depressed, working 17 hours a day, with very little pay. And there was a huge labor movement during that time. And Pope Leo the 13th at that time really supported it. But he also had what they call a preference for the poor, which means that the church should focus more on the poor of this world, because of the fact that as the church, we are required by the gospel message to take care of the poor. So I think he wants to continue that tradition of the preferential option for the poor, and also support for the working class, as we call it today.
Okay. He's a centrist unifier. Am I saying it right? Let's see what's
unifier. Yeah.
Unifier.
So I don't know much about his political relationships with the College of Cardinals, but I guess apparently for them to vote for him on the second day, which was pretty quick, I guess a lot of people liked him.
Number 9, he studied math at Villanova. He earned his bachelor's degree in mathematics from Villanova University in Pennsylvania, and went on to receive his diploma in theology from, what's that, Gardis?
Catholic Theological Union
of Chicago.
And also too, somebody that I know that went to Mendel. He actually taught math at Mendel.
Oh, wow. Yeah, math is so hard. Oh my goodness.
So the Pope was an actual teacher at Mendel High School at one point.
That's interesting. And lastly, he's a fan of tennis.
Okay. I only watched tennis when Serena was doing it, but now that Serena's, I think she's retired. Yeah. So I
like Coco too now.
Yeah, I guess Coco is okay.
Now I have a question for you. Last, because I know you gotta go, but I was so confused today and I didn't have time to check. What did the black smoke come out versus the white smoke come out at the Vatican?
Oh, so basically the tradition is during the rounds of voting, if the 2/3 votes are not fulfilled, the black smoke comes out, which means that there's no pope. But then when they do have a 2/3 vote, then the white smoke comes out. So they use some sort of chemical dye when they burn, because what they do is a lot of secrecy is behind the conclave. So in the process, I don't know if have you watched the movie Conclave?
No, I
Okay,
didn't.
go and watch that. It used to be on Peacock, but it's on Amazon Prime now.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you'll find it on Amazon Prime. But it actually is a perfect setting to how the process of the conclave happens. So you'll understand like what's going on. But then there's also, like in the movie, they have this like political, back and forth, and it's a political story. Because in the movie, the Pope dies, and there's this British cardinal who is what they call the Dean of Cardinals, and he basically is the convener of the conclave. And so he organizes it, and he makes sure all the cardinals who come in. And so you have these personalities who come in, and they're part of the voting block of who might be the Pope. And the story has an interesting twist at the end. So I would suggest you watch it, but it does introduce you to the whole process of how the conclave works. So what happens in the conclave is all of the cardinals take a vow of secrecy, and they do it publicly. So they go to the book and they read it in Latins, like, I swear Cardinal such and such would not divulge any information of what happens or what we talked about in this particular conclave. And so what they do is nobody knows who voted for who. The ballots are all secret. And what they do is they're like set up 3 cardinals where they're like the judge, the election judges. And so they announce who's voted for, and then they take the ballots and put it like in this container. And so when they tally all the ballots, and like say they don't have the 2/3 votes, they take those ballots and they throw it in the incinerator where they burn for the smoke. And then they use this dye for white smoke or black smoke, and they burn the ballots. So
Oh wow.
who voted for who, or what conversations happened. It's basically, like I said, it's a basically anonymous vote in person.
Wow. Okay. And people are asking me this question, so I gotta ask you before you go, Gardis, do you think he would ever visit Dolton? We know he'll come to Chicago and the school, but would he ever visit Dolton? And where would he land if he did?
Oh man,
he wouldn't go to Pablo's. So where would His Holiness go?
He come to.
Yeah, go to Dunkin' Donuts.
Yeah, I mean, maybe the administration might invite him to tea to trustee. You got the tea trustee.
Oh, now that would be great.
But I mean, hey, you know what? Like St. Mary's was like the last, and if I can remember, the only Catholic church in Dolton.
No, we had I mean, it was a couple. We have to do a part 2. Because you have now St. Jude's of South Holland.
Mm-hmm.
But
you know what? When I first moved to South Holland, there were 3 Catholic churches in South Holland. Now there's just only 1.
You might be right, because on that border is 2, but I think the other one is Riverdale. I think you're correct.
Mm-hmm.
It was Lutheran and Methodist. And yeah, I think you're absolutely right. St. Mary's was the only one.
Yeah, from my understanding, it was the only one in Dolton.
Mm-hmm. And this is interesting. I appreciate you, Gardis. I'm gonna be asking you for a part 2 and part 3. I have a lot of questions about this whole situation and how Chicago will celebrate. I saw the Obama celebrating. Everyone, I'm just wondering, how will the Archdiocese in Chicago celebrate that we really have a Pope?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. So I'll be interested. So let me know when you want me to come back on.
Thank you so much, Gardis. You have a great night.
All right, you too.
Bye.
Bye.
Got it. Gardis Watts, you guys. Thank you so much for staying up late with us. Thanks for your questions. And we're going to congratulate Gardis. He graduates in 2 weeks. How would we know that Gardis the Watts would hear this little channel? And this is another historical moment. He's graduating from the same school that the current Pope graduated from. He's Gardis's history himself, but I just think that's really, really cool. Hey, Choose. Keeper said the Pope is going to eat at St. Patrick's. I guess. I hope that Pope Leo does not drive by St. Patrick's. I'm pretty sure he'll know. And yeah, so Gardis is graduating from the same school. This is historical. I hope he comes back and tell us what happened, during graduation. Or it would be so great if the Pope could speak at the graduation. I know he has a lot of engagements, but that would be amazing. He said, okay, aka Curtis Watts. They can mess up a name. You guys, thanks for being here. Hit the like button, consider subscribing. We appreciate you so much. And we thank Gardis Watts again, because like I said, I went to Catholic school and grammar school. I knew nothing but the Father, the Nun, and the communion. That's all I knew. And as I got older, I learned more, but I really didn't keep up with that, because it was just not there for me. And now to see this and see more people, even when we're discussing this, we're confusing faith. This person don't believe in God. This person don't believe in Jesus. This person, and we don't even know because we haven't been in the faith. So I'm so thankful when you guys from other faiths, or not to say we're opposite, but come and explain things to me, explain things to the audience. I appreciate you so much, you guys. So now I'm getting hoarse, so I'm gonna get up out of here. Hey, Potato. We had a great conversation with Gardis Watts. And did you know that the Pope is from Dolton, Illinois? He grew here and not flew here, but he will have to fly back. And it would be so cool if he came back. I just think this is a breath of fresh air. I grew up in Dolton, and if you didn't know, the school that I went to and Tiffany Henyard went to, Vandenberg, it actually had a nunnery at night, where it was a school for nuns. So we'll cover that on the channel too. I told Gardis gonna have to be back. He's gonna have to be back so we can talk about this. All right, you guys. As always, I can't even play because we've been talking about the Pope, so I can't play my sign out. I can't play Ike Turner. But I appreciate you guys. See you tomorrow. And I appreciate you. We'll be doing Jay and Pamela. I've been holding on to that. I'm sorry. I've been trying to get it done. Jake and Pamela tomorrow. Take care of yourself and each other. Bye.
Commentary blue. Commentary. Burgundy. Commentary. Comment blue. Commentary. Comment Burgundy blue.